Okay, well, it's time now for MediaWatch, and I'm joined by Emma James. Hi there.
Hi there.
The US President Donald Trump spoke a bit earlier on today, and not for the first time he lambasted the media, but did he say anything he hasn't already said before?
Yes, it is becoming something of an old chestnut for the US president to talk about fake news. He also talked about the scale of his election win, just for a change. He was talking to conservative political activists, so this was very much an audience on his side, which you could put it mildly. Some really liked the fact that he took on the media yet again. This Twitter user, a radio talk show host, said she was loving his speech. He's spot on about fake news, not media being the enemy of people. If you lie, then you are fake news, she says. And this image that she's put on Twitter has the words underneath, deal with it. But it's interesting, really, that perspective that he's now saying it isn't the media in general, even though he's tweeted about it being mainstream media. It is just those who he deems to be fake news. This Twitter user, though, clearly a Trump fan, says, love you, doing great job, but enough of the fake news. You're giving them too much airtime. Conservatives are tired of this topic already, and I don't think that Twitter user is alone in that view at all. What was different about this particular speech, though? He chose to talk about anonymous sources in particular. And he was very, very strong on this issue, saying that basically it shouldn't be allowed for journalists to publish articles with claims from unnamed sources. And it is one of those fundamentals of journalism that you have to be able to offer protection to your source if they want it. Otherwise, why would they speak if they're revealing something particularly contentious? But he said, let there be no more sources. No one loves the First Amendment more than me, said Donald Trump. That, of course, is the freedom of speech in the US. He talked in particular about an article that quoted 9 unnamed sources from within the White House. And the Washington Post and many others seem to think that this is about a Washington Post exclusive, which eventually led to the resignation of Michael Flynn, the National Security Advisor. Their headline here, Trump's attack on 9 sources sounds a lot like the news story that started Flynn chaos. And it does seem an odd one to choose when you're talking about fake news, because this was one that actually was deemed to be true by the White House and led to that resignation. And you wonder, well, if it was fake news, if it wasn't true, why did he have to resign? And that certainly is being reflected on Twitter. White House confirmed the story and fired Flynn over it, more accurately, requested his resignation.
Okay, so a bit of hypocrisy there, a bit of a contradiction, more like. He didn't just talk about the media, though, did he, the US president? He also spoke about various places in Europe that he says are rather dangerous places to go to them. One of them was where we are right now.
Yes. Paris came in for a fairly rough ride in this press conference, along with Sweden and Germany. But he lingered in particular on the issue of Paris, saying Paris is no longer Paris. And this was all down to a friend of Donald Trump's who used to go every year to Paris and told him he won't go anymore. Twitter immediately sniffing out something of a hint of hypocrisy here. Anthony DeRosa from BuzzFeed tweeting, for one, if Trump is going to cite unnamed sources regarding Paris, doesn't that make Trump fake news? But he wasn't entirely anonymous. We are told that this gentleman was called Jim, and we were also told that he is a substantial guy, leading some people to get a bit of amusement from that idea. Please help Donald Trump's friend Jim, who can't go to Paris anymore, give generously. And the hashtag I stand with that substantial guy Jim was used by that Twitter user. This one as well saying, telling middle-class Christians about a friend who really suffers when he can't do his annual trip to Paris because of ISIS. Wow. Clearly feeling that really that's not something to be complaining about. It really isn't all that serious. Others chose to talk about their own trips to Paris. This gentleman saying Trump should tell his friend he is missing out. But he also said, I wonder, does Marine Le Pen believe that Paris is still Paris? Now, one politician who does still have great faith in Paris is, of course, the mayor, Anne Hidalgo. She tweeted this in response to Donald Trump, saying, to Donald and his friend Jim, we are in front of the Eiffel Tower celebrating the beauty of Paris with Mickey and Minnie.
Okay, so a message to Donald and Jim there from the mayor of Paris. And finally, the New York Times is spending some pretty big money spreading the message, I suppose, about the importance of truth.
Yes, absolutely. The New York Times, or the failing New York Times, as Donald Trump likes to refer to it, is going to be advertising for the very first time during the Oscars ceremony on Sunday. And it does mean shelling out an awful lot of cash. The ad lists conflicting statements that all start with the same three words. Let's take a look.
The truth is, our nation is more divided than ever.
The truth is, alternative facts are just plain delusional.
The media needs to be held accountable.
The truth is, locker room talk is harmless.
The truth is, we need to put the safety of the American people.
The truth is, we need a full investigation of any ties to Russia.
The truth is.
Now, according to Ad Age, that actually constitutes a huge investment for the New York Times. They haven't said exactly how much it cost, but it's thought to be in the region of $2 to $2.5 million to place that advert during the Oscars ceremony. And of course, the New York Times isn't the only one to hit back. It follows in the footsteps of the Washington Post, who changed their banner heading earlier this week to include the phrase, "Democracy dies in darkness." Now, some people didn't like it, it has to be said. Some thought it was a little pompous, some thought it was a little bit too dramatic. But those words actually have been commonly attributed to Bob Woodward, the man who, of course, uncovered Watergate and led to the demise of Nixon. Not sure whether they're trying to say that anything like that is in the future for Donald Trump.
Okay, well, it's a fairly bleak message, isn't it, on the masthead of a newspaper. But thank you very much indeed. Today's edition of Media Watch.